So first of all, a very warm welcome to all the participants. I, Dr. Ashok Sharma, Dean at IMT Center for Distance Learning, welcomes you to this session on international settlement and growth in business. This is focused specifically towards MSME and even for the people who are planning to go or take their business abroad. So this is going to add a lot of value to them. The business growth that I mentioned here is both on personal and business front. We as a nation is making a mark in international scenario. We are being seen as a key player in international business also. With the Chinese policies and the world is actually not actually getting into the taste of the China. So they're looking for the other option. So this is one of the best time actually to take our business abroad. Politically and policy wise also, our government initiatives are rightly aligned and supporting the organizations who are willing to go abroad. Keeping that in mind, we have actually planned this particular session in which we have got Mr. Ashish Dua, who is a fellow chartered accountant, a graduate from SRCC, a Canadian person of Indian origin, who's also the director of Ashish Dua Consulting Corporation with more than 30 years of rich experience in the area of business strategy, projects, and international settlement. He has helped to transform many small organizations into an international organization. We always see internationalization as a black box. We are not aware that how we would be going ahead with it, what are going to be challenges when we go international, how the other countries are going to see to us, from where to find the market, from where to look forward for the opportunities, and how to really establish your business. So here in this session, we would be actually trying to focus and give you insights regarding how could you strategically align yourself to getting into international scenario. I am pretty sure there's going to be a lot of value addition that you're going to get out of this. At IMT CDL, Center of Excellence for MSME, like we conduct the MDPs in various different areas. And this is one of the area in which we have planned an MDP in December month. So now I invite Mr. Ashish to actually put across his viewpoint and first of all share the various challenges that an Indian entrepreneur faces and how he can really take his business to a growth by the help of internationalization. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ashok Sharma. I think you have said the emotions and motions very well. Good morning, dear all. My name is Ashish Dua. I am running with a very bad throat as of yesterday, so just excuse me for that, but I will still try to ensure that you make the most of today's session. So as Dr. Ashok Sharma ji mentioned, the today world is a global village. MSME, which is the micro, small, medium companies, are the backbone of the Indian economy. Truly, we want MSMEs to be the MNCs now of the future. If you look at a lot of Chinese companies, as Dr. Ashok Sharma ji mentioned, they had ventured out globally and then they could create a bigger footprint for the Chinese businessman and the economy because they spread themselves pretty vast and wide. Having said that, today I will make some statements. When we look at the international growth today, it is not purely for the fact that it is to see the outside world. It has become the necessity of the day also today. There are many reasons now where any company which I will call it as a MSME company because that is where my heart and my love lies, they should be thinking about how they can grow outside India. And again, while I will touch on the topic of how and why they should grow, I will also speak later on how, and something about the how to straight away is that it is not at all difficult to grow outside India. There are mechanisms placed by the government. There are enough support from the international countries where they welcome good businessmen with good product and good services to offer. Now let's first talk about why. Today, when we talk about why, I think there are an n number of reasons while an MSME could be thinking about setting up their operation outside. I'll just take few of them. We have right now MSMEs, the entrepreneurs who have been doing business for a pretty long time in India. Their children have grown up. They have gone ahead and doing studies outside India right now. And there are times when they don't want to come back to India. And at that time, there is always a thought which comes to the mind of the businessman. How do he gets integrate his children or link them with the current business? So today, if we are able to justify their ambition also, along with integrate or expand our business globally, I think it meets both the objectives. Then the fact that when we looked at the COVID, we looked at the challenges on the supply chain. Today, a lot of developed countries are looking at their suppliers or to be closer to them because the shipping lines definitely was a major issue. And also the fact that the shipping cost also went up big time. So all that is also will delight the customer if he sees or she sees the supplier or the manufacturer working close to his or her borders. The fact that today a lot of investors are global investors, including the way you can generate funding from your business. Today, while we may look at Indian sources of fund and they might be costly for some times, but then the fact is that if we have a presence globally, then there are also advantages of raising fund at a lower cost, which can again boost your global business. So if I was to list down such kind of a reasons, I would say there are many, and then there are other reasons also. As I mentioned, one needs to be close to the customer, but then one can also be close to the raw material or newer technologies where basically which will further help them to grow into the business. Now, coming to this was all about the why. Now, when we look at how, I can make one simple statement to start with. Today, every country, whether you talk about US, whether you talk about Canada, whether you talk about Europe, you talk about Australia, you talk about UK, or even the Middle East today, there are a lot of legal opportunities in which they want the businessman, existing businessman, to come and think about expanding his or her businesses in that country, help to generate the economy, help to generate some employment, and they are more than happy to give short term and the long term visas, which could convert into permanent residency or citizenship, depending upon what somebody needs. And those are very straightforward way of getting and expanding your footprint in those countries. And I'm talking about the opportunities which may not also demand too much of the capital outflow. So sometimes people may tell you that, okay, you can only go to the country provided you are ready to invest 500,000 or million or 2 million. But that generally does not apply to an existing businessman. If his product or services are solid, if he has some history of performing in the Indian operations, the countries are more than happy to offer them those visas. Definitely, there are other visas, which we call as the investor visas, where one can think about investing some crore of rupees or something of that sort, depending upon which country you are talking about. But the fact remains, for an existing business, and that is our topic, our target for today topic, it is the MSME. They are lovely and beautiful opportunities for those businesses to set up, to expand, to help their key stakeholders move into the country and become a global player. Now, while I worked with all the countries across the world in helping the MSME grow, but I am more than I will take today a couple of countries example which will help you to understand that how easy it is to basically expand in that country. People might have told you that it's very complicated or might have told you ways which I would say one should not adopt if they are not legal. But the fact remains that there are many legal ways and perfect and beautiful ways of existing businesses to expand in those countries. Now, let's talk about Canada.
Hello.
Before I proceed further, definitely there is going to be a session at the end on the question and answers. But I would just like to hear from Dr. Ashok. I hope my voice is sounding still okay, my dear friend. And my sincere apology. I'm feeling guilty in case if my voice is kind of a little bit hoarse, Mr. Ashok, Dr. Ashok.
No, sir, your voice is fine, a bit coarse, but it is fine. Like you are perfectly, we are able to understand you. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Ashokji, for validation of this. Now, I'll just take one country example to begin with, my dear friends. Today, as I mentioned, and I'm going to take an example of Canada. It's in the news many days, for a lot of reasons. And the fact that you hear a lot about the easy immigration of Canada. You hear a lot about um, the fact that you can easily become an immigrant there. You talk about the advantage of Canada being close to the US. And again, what I'm going to talk about Canada, trust me, the same kind of or similar rules also apply to the other countries, whether it is UK, USA, Europe, Middle East, or Australia. Now, let's talk about Canada today. Today, there are many easy schemes. I have to use the word easy because that is where, as a professional, I have to be very, I'm very sure about when I use the word easy. Today, there are a lot of startup visas which Canadian government allows for the existing businessman. I will talk about one very simple one. This particular thing is called startup for intercompany transfer. So let's say a businessman who's running a business in India, and it does not matter whether it is a sole proprietor or a partnership or a private limited or a public limited company. If he or she has been running business in India or anywhere outside Canada, for example, and if the turnover is a reasonable turnover, let's talk about in a very simplistic term, 3 crore per year on the books. I have to use the word on the books, not to expand it further, but I'm sure it is well understood. And it doesn't matter whether the company was doing a profit or loss, because in the last 2, 3 years, there has been time on the COVID when people have not done very well. And globally, all countries do understand that also. So, and if they have been running a business which is about 3 crore or 4 crore per annum on the top line revenue, and I'm not talking about the net profit, and the business has been in place for 2, 3 years or 4 years, and it is a forward looking business. The fact that there's always a market of those kind of products in the global market, then it's a very simple process. The way you go about doing it, you take a professional help, you go about setting up a subsidiary of your business in that country. Again, I will also make a very simple comment here. The ease of doing operations is truly is very easy. One could online create a company on your own or take a professional help, and you could incorporate a company. There are different provinces in Canada. Provinces is like a state in India. And depending upon which province you want to do your business, the rules may differ, but some provinces do also allow a single director without requiring a Canadian PR or a citizen to be a joint holder in that company. So you could be 100% owner of the company, you could be the single director, and you still may not require anybody from Canada to be joining that because you may not like to share that. But again, some rules do change from province to province. Once you have done that, then the next step is to take a professional help, and maybe you can do it yourself also. Create a business plan as to what your business will be doing in Canada. Now, business plan necessarily does not mean that you have to run the same business, because in a forward looking world, you could be thinking something more modern now. I will just take some example. And these are very straightforward answers. I am a doctor running a hospital in India, and I want to expand into healthcare in Canada. The fact that hospital business is owned by the Canadian government, this not allowed private entrepreneurship. But still, I could think about maybe opening up a business in Canada and creating a professional business and running it in Canada. So I have to give you a couple of more examples. I am into tires. I am trading in tires. So tomorrow in Canada, we could be talking about maybe setting up a retreating business. When the supply chain were affected recently in the North American market, and because of some increase in the prices, the retreating of the tires also grew up as a big market. Another one or two more examples. So, for example, you are into a food supplement. I'm just switching off the video. I think there's a request. Maybe my network connection is not good. I'll just switch off the video, my dear friends. So there are many examples where I hope the connection sounds better. If somebody could just confirm, it would just help me to
Yes, sir.
ensure.
Yes, sir. It is okay now, sir.
Perfect. So in this way, you need not necessarily do the same business. And once your business plan is ready, again, you can take a professional business help. Then with the fact that you may like the owner of the company, like himself, to move to that country. Again, as a owner of a company, you have a two relationship with the company. While you may be the owner of the company, you could be an employee. Let's say I have a private limited firm. I am 100% shareholder of that company, but I am also drawing salary. So it's a very simple and legal way to describe yourself as both the owner and also as the employee of the company. So now what you propose, either you as the owner or anybody else in your family who is part of the Indian business or anybody of your senior stakeholders, you want that person to move with his family to Canada so that the person could look after the Canadian operations. Now, and then along with the profile of the person, some very generic papers, which could be about the person profile, the fact about his uh, proof that he is part of the Indian operations, and then along with the regular papers like your passport of himself, the spouse, children who are up to the age of 21. So combining all those papers together, along with the some papers of the Indian operation to prove that this Indian operations has been reasonably doing on the turnover side for at least 2-3 years. And if you combine all those papers together and make an application, the Canadian government would be more than happy to give you a work permit to begin with. So you could have a work permit for yourself, an open work permit for your spouse, which basically means he or she can do any job. And you could have an open study permit for your children who are up to the age of 22. So, as a matter of fact, this whole process is not taking you alone, it is taking the whole of the family together. And initially, the work permit is issued for a period because the Canadian government is not asking you to invest a capital amount and just trusting to the fact that you are a good businessman and you will do something. So, having given that work permit there for a particular period, you go there, you start your business. It is not necessarily to own any shop or lease anything. It is important to do some business. And again, the government do also expect that in 1 year, you are not going to make profit. And the government do expect that it takes some time in a new country to develop the business. Maybe your first revenue will come down in 3 months, 6 months, which is very natural progression of any new business in a new country. So with that as a thought process, you justify there, and then after a period of your work permit having finished, you may either renew your work permit or you may apply if you desire to be as a permanent resident of Canadian geography. So again, that's an individual option. Now, these are a very simple, and again, the whole process takes around 5 to 6 months. And it's a process where you apply directly to the IRCC, which is the Immigration Refugee Citizenship Canada. It's a federal-based program. You may live and work in any of the province. So I'm just giving you some of the benefits of this kind of a program. Now, look at the Indian side now. We never realized that there are a lot of benefits which the Indian government also offers for any business growing outside India. And as a matter of fact, the more you are aware of that, the more, the lesser chances you will fall in the wrong hands. For example, as part of the overseas direct investment, Indian government does allow 4 times the net worth of your Indian business to be transferred as share capital subscription for your outside subsidiary. So which basically means that you can, if your company is valued at X amount, you could transfer 4X amount. And again, if it's a private limited firm or it's a registered partnership, you need not take an RBI approval. The fact that you go through your authorized dealer, which is nothing but your regular bank dealer, and you make that request, and through the ODI process, they make those transfers and you get your money into your Canadian business account and then you can use this judicially for further investment of for your business in Canada. Again, coming to some other aspects, for example. Now, so this is a very simple and straightforward process. Now, today, there are a lot of banks, like the Indian banks. I would just name one or two. ICCI India, for example. They also have operations in Canada, and they run an individual entity called ICCI in Canada there. Definitely, it has an arm's length with their Indian operation, because those are two different separate entities managed by two different federal governments. But the fact remains that there are ways you can get even financed in the new country on the basis of your credit worthiness in the Indian side of it. So if your business model is strong, or you have collateral to collateralize in India, these banks help you to pass on the credit line in the new country of your business, which will give you the credit at a rate of 4 to 5%, depending upon the prevailing commercial rate. And then you can take an advantage of those lower rates to expand in that country. Again, there are aspects of double taxation. Again, people get surprised that, okay, what will happen and this will happen. But trust me, that if you handle your double taxation very well, you don't attract any new element of cost to yourself. It is just that you need to be aware about the fact that there are taxes in both countries, and if you have paid in one country, it will be given advantage in the other country. So that is something one has to really look forward for a professional way to make sure those issues are well settled and well planned right from the beginning. Now, so in this whole process, what I just explained you for an existing business, and I mentioned to you, it is called the startup for the intercompany transfer. Startup basically mean because you are starting a new operation in Canada. And intercompany transfer basically means like you are talking about moving somebody from your current operations in India to a Canadian operation. So that's why I call it's intercompany transfer. Similar names are there in the US, which is called the L1 visa. Similar names are there in the UK, like representative visa. So there are many such visas which countries have to be able to support the existing businessman. Okay, and I hope this information, and again, I also mentioned to you the fact that the ease of the operations and things like those. Now, I will just go back for a minute to a topic which we, Rakeshi, yes, it's a logical way. So logical way is that you first incorporate a subsidiary, it's an incorporation, and then you create the complete papers, including the business plan, and then you file for the visa or for the work permit, my dear. I hope that was the answer you were looking for to your question, Rakesh. Thanks, Rakesh, for validating that. Now, I will also make some statement on the business plan. I have to talk about it because that's a very big topic in its own right. As I mentioned, the business plan is a very important element of this whole process. Now, as I mentioned, while you may have a business in India, you are more than happy, you are more than allowed to think about doing something in the new country. It is not necessary that you have to extend in the same line of business. Though some relation, if it could be established, is always helpful. So for example, if somebody was in the owning a hospital in India and now he's going to run an old age home on it, which are called genetic care centers, run privately in the Canadian market or US market. It is not one-on-one same business, but it is related. If I am into trading, and if I am now thinking about retreating of tires, different business, but some relation. If I am into pharma and I am now thinking of setting an R&D with creating food supplement in the country, again, some relation business. So this kind, if I am right now in the automobile sector, maybe building fasteners for a mechanical, but now tomorrow I want to think about producing lithium battery because there's a lot of raw material available in Canada for that. So it's a related business because you at least still know that you are into the automobile sector. If I am into packing, plastic packaging, and tomorrow I want to open up, and maybe I'm now thinking forward looking and I'm thinking about biodegradable plastics of packaging in Canada because there's a huge market coming up there as the government is banning plastic in 2024. Again, it's a related market. If I'm a jeweler in India. I deal with jewelry. And tomorrow I am dealing in gold jewelry, but I decide to open a artificial jewelry in Canada. That is also perfectly fine. Or even I can think about, because Canada has a lot of gold resources as a raw material, I would call it. And if you're thinking of setting up a business in Canada so that you have a legal entity there where you could you could help to export gold into different countries or maybe import into India, that is also a very good business model. So, having said that, there are many business models which one can think about. Now, I am going to talk about something more interesting now on the business plan. Some people say can there is something called treaties. So, as an international consultant of the businessman, just give me 1 second, my dear friend. There's somebody who needs my attention. Just give me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. So, we as a consultant helping the businessman also have to be aware about the global treaties. So, for example, when we think about settling business in Canada, we need not be worried that Canada geography or the population is a small population, because there is a treaty between US and Canada which is called the NAFTA, North American Foreign Trade Agreement. The new name for that treaty is USMCA. So when our respected Mr. Trump came as a president, he changed the name of the treaty from NAFTA to USMCA. USMCA stands for United States, Mexico, and Canada. So this treaty allows for easy exchange, in many cases without custom duties, of goods and services between the two countries. So today, if I am establishing a business in Canada, and if I am talking about the market or the potential of the revenue, I may not only look at the Canadian operations. And I have to, I am more than happy and I should think about how I can make the Canadian operation as the base to even sell in the US market and take the benefit of the treaty. Now, this particular element, if it is put up in the business plan, the Canadian immigration, which is the IRCC, love to hear about those opportunities because they are more than happy to see a company incorporated in Canada and growing and selling in US also because it's a greater revenue to the Canadian market. And I mentioned to you sometime back in this call that the supply chain processes during the COVID did get hampered for many reasons. And if I want to be close to my customer, let's say US, which is the number one economy of the world, there was a funny statement made somebody that, indirectly, we all work for US. If Middle East produces oil, it is because of the consumption in the US. If we run BPO IT companies, is for the US companies. So again, I could go on the list for that. But the fact remains that by being in Canada, by taking the benefit of those treaties, by being in the same time zone, which is about, as a matter of fact, the international dialing code for both US and Canada is one. So if you dial US and Canada from India, the international dialing country code is one. And practically the infrastructure is the same. And once you became a Canadian citizen, actually, you don't need an H1L1 visa to work in US and same for the American citizen because as I mentioned, there's a visa called TN, Treaty NAFTA visa, which is for the individual professional to work across the country. Again, that is just an advantage coming out of the treaty which I mentioned, the NAFTA or the new name be USMCA. So coming back to the business plan. So when I have shown in the past that, okay, a company is going to be set up in Vancouver and is going to be running a geriatric care center, I am actually was more than happy to put there that we will also get old age people from the US. Vancouver is a lovely place, golfing place. Or for example, Ontario. Ontario is another province in Canada where you have a lot of automobile sector. As a matter of fact, I am just helping another company to set up a fastener business close to being the Ontario big market of the automobile manufacturers because that's where a lot of American vehicles get produced. So these kind of treaties we do specialize, and again, this is not one. Today, if you go to the UK, we would have a set of treaties to talk about. If you go to Europe, there'll be set of treaties to talk about. If we go to Middle East, so again, knowledge of these treaties further help us to create the right business plan or a platform for the business. Now, so this is generally I spoke about the startup for the intercompany transfer visa. Definitely today focus is purely on, as I mentioned, MSME, our dear micro, small, medium companies in India. Again, there are other schemes in Canada. I will not touch on them. Those are like startup for angel investors, startup for incubator, startup for venture capitalists. The list is huge. But again, since our target is MSME, so I first touched on how a company can grow outside an existing businessman. Now, I will go further now. As a part of the process, let's say I'll just take further steps and start to visualize your journey in Canada having got your work permit. So, what because some people do ask me, okay, what we will do when we reach there, or what we will do, because at the moment, like getting a visa is one thing, but having to do something because a businessman will always remain a businessman, you know, and that's a good thing for sure. So today, let's say I will take the step forward. I have incorporated my company. I have created the business plan with the help, and now the Canadian government was nice to issue the work permit, and now I am talking about landing in that country. So the first thing one needs there is the funds, because without money you can't do much basically, in life. That's the sad part of it, but we are all here to talk about facts on the table. So today, as I mentioned to you, there is a thought on the ODI, which is the Overseas Direct Investment, which the Indian government allows you to take 4 times the net worth of your Indian company and legally transfer the money to your accounts in the business accounts in Canada. Secondly, there are banks in Canada, like I will just name one of them, BDC, which also encourages people to talk to them. And if their product and services are solid, then basically they will also look at very positively to you and can think about giving you a loan around. Again, I'm not going to the fixed amount. It is just that I'm taking a very relative example of, let's say, $350,000 if your product and services are valid. Because as a matter of fact, you are giving them a proof that you are already an established businessman. Your business plan, which was prepared during your work permit, has been made on a very practical basis. And then secondly, so for them, you are more than a startup. They have more confidence in you than any other startup, because there's a history and legacy behind your business, your enthusiasm, your profile, your business plan as to what you will do in Canada. Because sometimes while preparing the business plan, we also encourage the entrepreneur to subscribe for some research report. For example, one of the person I was helping on the biodegradable, we went to a research company to figure out what is a kind of potential there by dollar to dollar on the biodegradable plastic, for example. So again, doing systematically, combining that, you get a start to fund. Then there are a lot of government initiatives in each of the province. I will just try to give you some examples, and which are very interesting example, my dear friend. And these are very, see, every mayor of that country, of a city of that country, has an agenda on the table. The agenda is to grow the business in his community, grow the business in his, and have some local employment happening. It is so easy to figure out online. And again, if you don't know, as a professional, you can always ask for the help to figure out who is the mayor of that city. And then if you have decided, again, your decision should be based on some relevance. For example, if I am in the automobile sector, I want to be in Brampton or Vaughan or some of the areas in Ontario, because that's where the other automobile joints are there. Or if I want to be working with my, like US companies in Washington State, which is on the West Coast, sorry, then I could write to somebody of a city mayor who is on the border, who has a city right on the border of the Canadian US border. And if I write to them that, I, as an entrepreneur with some history with this business plan, is thinking of establishing a business in that city, trust me, and I've always found that myself. And again, they go all the way out to help you to get settled and provide all the kind of knowledge or support or the infrastructure which will help you to settle down or grow in that city. I'll take one example, for example. So there was an IT BPO company. It was serving from Chennai. They were basically serving their US customers. They decided that, okay, we will like to set up near the show, as they call it, and operations in the in the Canadian market with the same time zone as the US. So they approached me. They said, I don't care if I am on the East Coast, West Coast, but can you get me a good deal on the table from, from the support side? And I wrote to, and I said, okay, if you are flexible on this, on that. So I wrote to one mayor. He was on the Prince Edward Island, which is again a kind of a place there. And I wrote that, and I asked him, this company says profile is this, will you be okay to do something for this? He said, let me know, Mr. Dua, when the person is arriving. My team will be there to assist the person in showing around the place, helping them find an infrastructure. And that they did not stop there. They even went to the extent that said, we have a place, 3,000 square feet. It's owned by the government. It's fully equipped with power and everything. And in case if this person is coming to set up the business, we will offer this whole space at a monthly revenue, at a monthly cost, which was, I was shocked to hear the cost, $300 per month. And I asked him, how come you are going all the way out to go that? He said, I am interested because the moment this company gets set up, they will employ 2 or 3 people. Employing 2 or 3 people means supporting a family of, each person has a family of 3 or 4 people, supporting 12, 13 people. So it says, this kind of expands our economy in my community. And that is a brownie point I show in my whole picture to the world. And I was so happy to hear that. And that experience led me to, somebody wants to set up a university, somebody wanted to set up a R&D, you know, and, like there are some provinces in Canada which will give you 33% refund in cash about your R&D cost if you are thinking about doing an R&D there. Again, every country is nice. I'm just trying to tell you what nice one this country, because this is the business case we're talking about today. So, so there are different ways you can do about. Now, secondly, as I mentioned to you, uh, you can always acquire an existing business there because you have a legal entity in the form of the subsidiary there. You can always acquire another business through this legal entity, and the money for that again is coming from, let's say, 4 times the net worth of your Indian capital, as we mentioned. So there are different dynamics you can go around and balance your cash flows in this whole process. Again, it all goes by case to case, and but I just try to give you a kind of a glimpse that how one can talk about doing things. Now, having said about this thing, one thing I'll also like to mention here, my dear friends, and this is very critical. When you are expanding your dreams, objective for whatever reasons, whether it is for your children or being close to the customer or whatever you're thinking about, don't think that you may have to close down your Indian business. I would never suggest that, because technically, as a professional, I would always advise you to, every country has its own strength. So you should synergize the strength of both the countries and become a much robust player in the global market. So your Indian operations allows you your existing establishment, your lower cost for all the good reasons. And then your Canadian operations allows you, let's say, better margin, better rates for your market. And then the fact that today the travel cost, the travel time is so easy. Like today, if I take a flight tonight from Delhi to Toronto, it's a direct flight now. It is as good as going from Delhi to Varanasi by train. or going to Delhi to Udaipur by train. And again, there's the channels of communication have opened up so much now. The WhatsApp video, like I tell you, my own company has a very, sometimes when you get to know, you feel surprised that how easy the things are. So I have paid around $80 Canadian, which is you multiplied by 60. It's not a huge amount, and I'm talking about a full year now to subscribe to a service where if anybody in US and Canada calls me on my dial free number, which is called 1-800 numbers kind of story, I get the call directed to my mobile in India, for example. Okay. So, and this is talking about $80 Canadian for the annum. Okay. Sometimes when you're not aware about it, you feel it might be a big of hindrance, but that's the way it is. And again, on this visa, which I mentioned about the startup of the intercompany transfer, the Canadian government does not expect you to stay whole year there in the whole thing, because they understand you're a businessman. So let's say, as a senior stakeholder, you have migrated to the country. You initially got the work permit, as I mentioned to you, and this is a work permit in your own company, not with anybody else sharing rights or ownership with anybody else. It's your own company. So you could come back to India again because let's say the Canadian company, which is practically your company, tells you to go to China for some business. Will you say no? Not at all. So similarly, if you come back to India, will they say no? No, that's not an issue at all. So again, your mobility does not get impacted. The communication channel I spoke about, and you need not stay for the whole duration of the work permit. There you can keep on coming, depending upon what the business scenario looks like or what your personal scenario looks like. But definitely you have to understand the double taxation, because if you stay more in one country for more than, let's say, 6 months in India, you become a resident. So I think that's another bigger topic. Again, I can't handle this topic in this call, but this is where we are talking about, my dear friends. So this is where we are. Uh, I think, Dr. Ashok, I have been speaking so long, and and again, I have sympathy with people who are listening to me. The kind of voice I have today. Guys, I promise you, I sound definitely much better. So it's a good pause for me also, 1 or 2 minutes. If
Yes,
people want to open up some questions, I will take a sip of water along with it and can hear some related question on this topic, Doctor.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. Uh, we can open the mic now. Like anybody who wants to put across a question, they can raise their hand, and we are going to permit them to have their queries put across to us, or they can even rather put across onto the in the chat box. So there's one question which is there in the chat box, which says that how easy is it to visit Canada through job route, then establish business there? Does Canadian government support that?
See, I will make a couple of statements, my dear friend. And as a 55-year-old chartered accountant, ex-KPMG, I will have to make statements which are by the book. Okay. So Canadian government supports big time anybody aspiring to come in the country on a job, provided the company in Canada is ready to sponsor his work permit. That's one bit. And if that company is ready to sponsor his or her work permit, the Canadian company has to go through a process which is called the LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, which is not a very tough process. Definitely, it is tougher in the US, which is like an H1 visa. But the fact I'm just highlighting that don't fall in the wrong hands for getting a work permit, which is not a true job for you, which has been just done to get you the visa. That is my word of caution. Okay. because the Canadian government is watching those visas very carefully. And again, you have to also understand the Canadian company which is sponsoring your visa. Let's say if that company runs a, sorry, don't take my words for wrong, but a pawn shop there or a small grocery store there. Okay. You know, and then they say, okay, you are coming as a CFO there, and the Canadian government knows something is fishy going on there. Okay. So again, because I am part of this so-called environment for a pretty long time, um, I am cautious of the fact that sometimes people fall in the wrong hands, and I might be a senior doctor or engineer or an MBA, and somebody says, I'll process your work permit, and this work permit is being processed as a clerk, or plumber or electrician. Don't fall for it, my dear friend. It is not good. Otherwise, the Canadian government has a very valid and easy process. If there's a company in Canada which generally needs people and is not able to find resources in Canada, they can adopt the LMIA, Labor Market Impact Assessment, ensure, justify to the Canadian government that this person's skill set is not there in Canada, and then they can hire that person from outside Canada. So the process is simple, legal, and very straightforward. That's the answer. I hope I am right to make that statement, my dear friend.
Absolutely true. This another question by Amol. He is talking about, is there any minimum investment required and loans be availed from Canadian or Indian banks?
So again, there are many schemes of the visa. See, one scheme I spoke in length today was the startup for intercompany transfer. This scheme does not require capital investment. As a businessman, you understand what is capital expenditure and what is an OPEX expenditure. Okay. Because here they require that you should have money enough for OPEX for 1 year to begin with, for example. And the OPEX you justify as the salary one is going to draw from its Canadian subsidiary and some basic expenses. Okay. But there are other schemes which are called the investor schemes. For example, I do not have a business in India. I can't take the benefit of this startup for intercompany transfer. So what do I do? Then there are other schemes, both at the both mainly at the provincial level, where I can say that if I am ready to invest $500,000 Canadian, for example, and if I have a business plan, the provincial government will give you a work permit for 2 years, and then you can basically go on it 2 years, and they will do an audit for a couple of years, and you ensure that you have really invested that amount. And if that things are gone as per the agreement, then after 2 years they will give you the PR. As a matter of fact, because in COVID time, a lot of countries globally did not do well. Today there's a complete buffet open for these investor schemes. So you pick up a country in Europe, whether it is Portugal, Greece, Italy, 300,000 euros to €500,000. You pick up a country, you're ready to invest into property or business, and depending upon the range which is there, they will give you quickly the residency of that country, and in 5 or 3 or 4 years, you will become a European passport holder. Yes, so I hope I answered the question, but I had to expand it a little bit more to make sure that the right message gets out, Dr. Ashok.
Sure. Amol ji, जैसे सर ने अभी बोला है, there are multiple options which are there. One thing is you already having a business, आपका अपना business यहाँ चल रहा है और आपको further expand करना है ना? So you can showcase your business and then you can enter. That is one of the scheme, the startup scheme which is there. Then second scheme हमारे पास होगी investment oriented. So we have got multiple things. So like in case you are going to have certain specific query, you can interact with us offline and then we can really identify and we can help you out. हम आपको और थोड़ा सा guide कर देंगे detail के अंदर.
So I think, and just one last point, I think one of the part of the question was Ashokji was also on the support from the Indian bank. So I'll just take one case.
Yeah.
So let's say ICCI India has something called SBLC, which basically means they will issue an SBLC letter, which is line of credit, on the potential of your, on the strength of your Indian business or your collateral property in India. And that SBLC letter, again, I need not be quoted. This is all basically things keep on changing. So again, but because this question was asked, I'm just taking it. But again, I have to qualify that things keep on changing. For the right information, one needs to always go to the right the bank in discussion. But I'm just giving you an example that sometime back. So with that line of credit, the Canadian entity could give you the further loan, and then again it will further ease you to expand or help you in the existing expansion, my dear friend.
Sure, sir. Sure. Yeah, no.
Okay. Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Like you can go on and on this particular issue. I know this is very close to your heart also.
Yeah.
Now we have opened the mic for everybody. Is there any query from any participant? They can really unmute themselves and they can put across their query to us.
Again, guys, I am very close to MSME. I am associated with a lot of trade associations now. And again, MSME becoming a true MNC, as I call it would be really a journey. We would love to see you grow. Things are not difficult. It is just that you have to take the right advice, be in the right company, as I would call it. And then again, for right people, right product, right service, right intention, best energy, best spirit, the world is there to you for you to capture.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true, sir. Yeah.
Okay, I think if there's no other question, yeah, Anji, Dr. Shokji.
In fact, like just to inform all of you, whenever you're planning to go international or expand your business, actually there are three things which actually goes into the entire process. First thing is, what is your strategic thought process? What is your strategic thinking? What you attain out of the that your business growth process. Second thing is your business model strategy, how you're going to develop your business model around. And followed by that, you need to define the systems and there has to be a team. Now, this is the entire process for a business while you're doing even domestically or even internationally. So as you can see on our screen, we are actually organizing a 2-day workshop keeping these things in mind. That means you are already having a business or you are planning a business and you want to take your business internationally. So what is going to be the starting step? You might have to organize your business here in the domestic scenario so that your business runs with the minimum of your intervention when you are not here into that business also. That is one aspect out of that. Second thing, you need to reinvent your business model also. Like the Ashish sir already has given a lot of examples. You are doing a particular business here, but when you get international, वहां जाकर के आपको कुछ नया बिजनेस देखना है और वहां जाके कुछ नई अपॉर्चुनिटीज आइडेंटिफाई करनी है. वो अपॉर्चुनिटीज कैसे देखनी है, कैसे आपको आइडेंटिफाई करनी है. अभी तो आशीष जी ने बहुत ही एक सिंपल तरीके से, बहुत ही एक आसान से तरीके से या जस्ट एक्सप्लेन देम. तो आपके अपने बिजनेस का जो ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन इंटरनेशनल प्रोसेस, इंटरनेशनल सिस्टम्स के हिसाब से, whether it is your operational system, whether it is your legal system, and definitely then you require your team also. The enabled team is going to help you in taking your business across. Business means a teamwork. Yeah, so like we would be addressing all these issues in detail, so that now you are able to really understand that as a business owner, which direction I have to go, what are going to be my timelines. मुझे अगले 6 महीने में क्या करना है, 1 साल में क्या करना है, 1.5 साल, 2 साल, 3 साल के अंदर मेरे पास क्या टाइमलाइंस होंगे, उन टाइमलाइंस के अंदर मुझे अटेन कैसे करना है. So we are there to help you across in development of those timelines and taking or doing that hand holding along with you, that from a domestic MSME that you are going to become an international MSME. And this is the overall vision that IMT CDL Center of MSME Excellence is actually looking forward for. So we are organizing a 2-day workshop to give you a detailed hand holding on 17th and 18th of this month. In case you want to register for it, you can have a look at it. The numbers already there. You can put it across. The registration link also we are going to put across in the chat so that you can click and you can record it and you can really register for this workshop. In case of any further queries regarding internationalization of your business, you can send across an email to us and we would be very happy to reply to your particular queries.
Dr. Ashokji, I will just make a comment. I think it's a kudos to you, your team, for really coming out the right time and compiling all the important elements for the MSME, sir. I would say that, and again, it was an honor that you reached out to people like me to get this thing on the table. But all credit goes to you and your team, sir. And as you rightly said, in these 2 days, when you're thinking about family structuring, the behavioral aspect, the teamwork, the business strategy, I think that all composite is very important, not to only talk about the international, but for the domestic growth also. So my kudos to you and your team, Dr. Ashokji.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. As an Indian and as a person who in fact has seen across the business grow across, and we are being into the management training where we have nurtured several thousands of the student who now are running their business successfully. We have seen across, these are the pain areas. मैं अगर बिजनेस कर रहा हूँ, अपने बिजनेस में इतने एनग्रॉस्ड हूँ कि मुझे आगे लर्निंग और फ्यूचर डायरेक्शन क्या चाहिए मेरे को नहीं पता है. एक बड़ी कंपनी के पास में वो रिसोर्सेस हैं जिनसे उन्हें पता है कि मेरे पास एक स्ट्रेटेजी के लिए मैं एक आदमी डिप्लॉय कर लूंगा, वो स्ट्रेटेजी बना देगा. मेरे पास एक सीएफओ होगा, वो सीएफओ आगे उसको एक फाइनेंशियल प्लान बना देगा. मेरे पास एक चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स की बैटरी है जो वो पूरे की पूरी जो है टीम उसको वर्कआउट कर लेगी. बट एक एमएसएमई को तो सारे काम खुद ही करने हैं. वो खुद ही मैनेजर है, खुद ही वो सेल्समैन है, खुद ही फाइनेंस मैनेजर है. तो ही हैज टू डू ईच एंड एवरीथिंग. So this is just a small effort, like where we are trying to help him. अब एक entrepreneurial organization को एक systematic way के अंदर develop करना है ताकि एक बड़ी organization, एक बड़े setup के लिए वो तैयार हो सके. So that now they understand that this is the way forward. So it's not only about just that we are there to tell them कि आपको एक इमिग्रेशन कराने या कुछ और करना, तभी नहीं. वी आर देयर टू हेल्प यू सेट योर बिजनेस एट बोथ ऑफ द प्लेसेस. यहाँ बेस रूट्स आपकी स्ट्रांग होंगी तो यू आर एबल टू सर्वाइव एट एनी ऑफ द प्लेस. सो योर सेल्फ डेवलपमेंट एंड योर स्ट्रेटेजिक थिंकिंग बोथ नीड्स टू बी अलाइंड. बिजनेस वुड ऑटोमेटिकली वुड बी फॉलोइंग इन लाइन. ये आपको अपने आप देखने को मिल जाएगा. यू आर गोइंग टू हैव दिस फीलिंग विद यू that yes, I have ultimately I am able to see the direction. मुझे आगे विजुअलाइजेशन और डायरेक्शन हो रहा है, मुझे रास्ता पता चल रहा है किस तरफ जाना है ना. With this kind words, I think we can close this session. Again, I am giving a call. अगर किसी के पास कोई query है ना, they can put across their query. I have shared across the link where you can post your queries also. है ना. ये हमारा जो मैनेजमेंट डेवलपमेंट प्रोग्राम है उसका लिंक है. आप वहां जाएंगे, वहां पे यू आर गोइंग टू सी दैट देयर इज गोइंग टू बी प्लेस वेयर यू कैन पुट अक्रॉस योर क्वेरी एंड डेफिनेटली वी वुड बी गेटिंग बैक टू यू. यू कैन, आप अपनी इंक्वायरीज डाल सकते हैं और वी वुड बी अगेन गेटिंग बैक टू यू.
Thank you, Dr. Ashok. Thank you so much for inviting me for this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
God bless you, sir. Bye-bye. Cheers.
So with this, we are calling off the session now.